Hello, and welcome to Postcards from a Soul and Her Human. I am the human, Gina. It's been quite a while since I recorded. I think this has been the longest span between episodes so far. And honestly, I wasn't sure if the last episode was my last. I've been open from the very beginning of this experiment of speaking into this microphone to the fact that that it'll go as long as it goes. As long as I have something to say, I will continue recording. And when that inspiration ceases, I won't record. And it's funny, it's been a little bit of a process to really embrace that because I think I've mentioned this before of our need as humans to feel productive in order to have value. And it's funny how that's dropped away. And even while thinking about doing this morning, which was, I had an inspiration this morning during my morning energy exercises and meditation that, it's not really been on my mind, but this morning I was thinking about how I'm feeling, and I really thought this might be a good subject matter for a recording. So here I am. It's interesting how the pendulum swings all the way the other way, how I went from the need to feel productive to absolutely not caring about it. And then the pendulum falls back to the center where it's like, well, I can be productive when I feel like it though. So it's almost like getting to know myself enough to understand when I'm feeling inspired or when I'm just need to be productive. And I can differentiate that at this point, I'm happy to say. When I feel any stress behind a thought or an idea, I know that it may not be coming from pure inspiration or the following of my heart, which is something that I'm learning every day as a driving force in my life. And it's just really interesting. I wanted to start this off by kind of checking in with how I'm doing. I've reported on so many different ascension events and symptoms, and how I've been affected by the change in my energy, the transmutation of my old energy, which is my three-dimensional energy, into whatever the frequency of higher energy that I'm in. I don't know what the dimension is. I think I've mentioned fourth or fifth, but I really don't know what it is or how many dimensions there may be. This is a mystery to me. I have intuitive feelings about it, but I don't feel a need to label it. I guess maybe that is the fairest way to put it. But going through this ascension process, this transmutation of my energy, I've had some pretty wild symptoms, and um, the episode Ascension Chaos is really the epitome of the height of it. And since then, that was in February, that ascension period. July did have there was another ascension period in July, not quite as powerful. It is August 6th right now as I'm recording. And I did have some effects from it, although they were not really, I didn't make any notations. I didn't really think too much about it. So that tells me that it really wasn't that big of a deal. I definitely still experience static in my solar plexus. And I think maybe some people may contribute that, or I'm sorry, attribute that to anxiety. But it is not anxiety. I know the difference. I have felt anxiety in the past. I had very great anxiety after my energetic break that lasted quite a while. This is different. This is more of a static or like when you turn a radio station and there's no connection, the sound of static is a little bit disturbing. It's not painful, but it's a little disruptive to your peace. And I guess that's the best way I can describe it. It's just an unsettled feeling in my solar plexus, and I've come to know that as being just a residual effect or a byproduct effect of the transmutation of my energy that is still taking place. And I believe, honestly, that this will continue the rest of my natural life here to some degree. because we are always ascending. We are always evolving. It's not a static process. It's not linear. It is not, uh, it doesn't happen and then it's done. It is something, once it starts, just like the flow of water, it can never stop unless it's contained. And because we are electromagnetic beings, there's no containment, even though there appears to be by way of the form of this body. But we are all a mass of electromagnetic waves, and it is not contained, and it is always flowing and changing. And I think this is one of the biggest things for me as a human being, to really understand and embrace that change or evolution, depending on how you look at it, is absolutely necessary for us to thrive as a species. And if we do not embrace change in whatever form it presents itself, we are negating our ability to truly thrive. I mean, evolution or evolving and ascending is thriving. We are learning. We are reaching new heights. I mean, we can put it in the simplest terms as that. The more we allow ourselves to rise or fly, the freer we feel. And that is not even that's a fact. I mean, I can tell you from experience, from going from a grounded, and not in a good way, I mean like a stuck on the ground, stuck in my mindset, stuck in my paradigms of my life. You don't realize this. You just go on every day hoping for the best, and you don't understand how much power you have as an electromagnetic machine to alter your reality. And I know I've talked about this so many times, and truly everything I ever say is about the same thing. And I said this before, there's nothing new here. It's just a new way of looking at it. And I feel like the more I learn and I can share about my experience, the easier it is for everyone, for others who are maybe new to this or who have gone through it and had a different experience, to really kind of accept that there is really no rule book. There's no right way to do this. There's no wrong way to do this. It's just really accepting what the energy that is in your life, and assimilating it and figuring out, is this good for me or not? And then using our brain, our intuition, our heart to really decide, in a free will society, which the earth plane is, what is good for us and what isn't. And I think that's really what this attunement is all about. It's not about becoming this ethereal being in this human body. It's about becoming a master at the game, becoming an absolute master at this game called life, where we're no longer controlled by it or a pawn in it. We are actually the creator of it, and we move the puzzle pieces, or we move the chess pieces around the board. That is really what ascension in the human form is. It's an understanding that we now have the perspective to see ourselves for what we are, and we accept that. And in that accepting, we accept responsibility and accountability for the condition of our lives. And once we do that, and I say we, I mean me, I don't, this is my experience. Once I was able to take accountability for who I was and how my life reflected that, the whole game changed. I went from being a blind participant without a rule book to writing the rules myself, with an understanding that that free will means freedom to live a life that suits me. And it doesn't mean it's the same as anyone else. And like for me, for example, I mean, there are people who look for spirituality all their lives. They look and seek is the right word. They seek it out. They look at masters, or they read books, and I did all this too. But they look for an escape from humanity. They want to be ethereal. They want to only connect with their ethereal selves. They want to be spiritual. And I think this is the same, I can use the same pendulum example for me. I was the same way, where I just wanted a connection to something outside of this alien life that I didn't connect with, this humanity that didn't feel like me. And I seeked this out my whole life, and the relationships that I had were always talisman. They were always sending me in the direction I needed to go to find what I was looking for. And of course, ultimately, when we go and search for something, that meaningful to us, we ultimately end up right back to ourselves. And that's what, there's a book called The Alchemist, and I think it's, oh my God, I'm going to screw up his name. Pablo Coelho or something like that. This author who wrote this book, it really is a great representation of that, of the process of awakening, or uh, the the trip that we take, or the journey we take through our lives, this earthly life, to find our Mecca, our Valhalla, our heaven, whatever you want, however you want to put it on earth. And it always, it has to come back to us. We are the ones who are the masters of that. It's a really wonderful book if you get a chance. It's called The Alchemist. And it's interesting because that I read about this author. He wrote this book, put it out there, and it didn't get much attention at all. And then years and years later, and I don't remember, it was a decade or longer, it suddenly caught fire and went insane and viral, I guess, if you will, and however a book goes viral. And it became a really important tool to those of us looking for the salvation that is always just within ourselves. And it's just so interesting to think about it from this high perspective, that that we're searching for salvation, and we have to find ourselves. So many of us go that way. They want to be spiritual, they want to escape humanity. And then there's the other sect that wants to stay human and in the materialistic viewpoint, and really reject anything else, that there is anything out there besides our human form. We die, we go into the ground, it's over with. And I'm on it's actually interesting. I'm on a new platform, a social media platform called Conscious Commons, where they don't use algorithms and there's no advertising, and it's strictly just people connecting with people, with our ideas, and through questions that the platform asks its subscribers. And then the subscribers, me being one of them, can engage in that question, and then with the other people, and really discuss the subject matter of whatever's on people's minds. And it is a spiritually based community. And I say that loosely because I really don't know what that word means anymore. It is a mixture of high believers to the agnostic, to those who don't believe anything. It's a mixture of all types of hearts and mindsets, but it's a platform where we actually connect. It's very interesting, called, again, Conscious Commons. If you're interested, I've actually stopped posting on my other platforms because this is so engaging. So anyway, there are people who are rejecting spirituality. So there are all sorts out there, and it's funny how nothing I read or hear or watch is by accident, and that's something else I've really embraced as well. Because when something seems to make no sense to me, to my mind, that is really an assistant to my spiritual mind, or my gut. When my mind doesn't understand it, but I'm watching something or hearing something, I know enough to just be patient, and whatever I'm meant to glean will be gleaned, whether it's during the transmission into my ears and then my brain and then to my body, or it's something else that is seeded and that grows and becomes an awareness later. And honestly, a lot of the work that I do comes to me that way. I just finished an article that is posted on my website. It's actually a free download called RESONATION, where I had no idea what I was going to write, but I had this idea, or this whisper of an idea, that stayed with me long enough for me to say, I hear you. I'm going to start working on you. I opened up my word processor and I just started to type, and I really didn't know what I was going to write. I thought it was going to be a short article because I don't really have much material, but as I was writing, it was being created and it flowed out of me. And I know this is channeling. This is so interesting. And I believe all of us channel all the time. we don't recognize it as such. But in this new energy, knowing what I know, understanding how this all works, this resonation of our hearts, our minds, our thoughts, our hearts, and our body is it's I mean, we give our brains credit for ideas, but honestly, I don't believe many of them come from our brains. They come from this channel between our spiritual selves and our human selves. And that channel is open. So it's not just my higher self that speaks to me. It's other soul family members. It could be beings from other galaxies. It could be, any life force. And I ask to only be receptive to those that are positive, and my spirit team, it protects me from that otherwise. But that intuitive channel is where most of my wisdom comes from. Maybe all of it. I mean, I really don't know, but understanding that and having that connection, and knowing that what I'm meant to do or say, or who I'm meant to be is not necessarily going to start with my brain. It's going to come through me in a different way, and getting used to that channel being open and being receptive to it without questioning it, which is what the mind wants to do, is really the difference between playing the game and creating the game. And that's my point there. It's just that we don't escape humanity. When we ascend, we become masters at it. And it becomes, and it's funny, it becomes effortless. And this is something that was told to me over and over in many, many tarot readings, which I think I mentioned in the last episode, that my spirit team they talked to me every day. I mean, multiple times a day. And the messages just were repeating and repeating and repeating about different aspects of my journey and my mission as a soul in this life, and the people who would affect it, the souls. And it had to be hammered into my brain, because I was coming from such a thick atmosphere in the three-dimensional energy that I really needed that constant validation in order for me to trust that there's something beyond what my brain understands. And it took a long time for that to really start to resonate. And that word again, it's so important. It's a resonation. When we start to understand, we start to really trust our gut and trust ourselves, our opinions, our feelings, our instincts. When we get in a clarity where we can truly trust that, there is nothing in this world that disrupts it. There's nothing in this world that can disrupt that again. So I want to talk about two things. One is effortlessness, one is contentment. And I think I'll start with contentment. Because since I've gone through this ascension, or this energetic upgrade, I should say the bulk of it, the thing that I've noticed the most about my life, about becoming master of my life, of my human life, because now my ethereal self has access to my hands, to my brain, to my eyes, to my speech. So I'm no longer stumbling as a human without navigation. I now have my navigation system is fully up and running, and all access points are active. So there's no stumbling in the dark anymore. There's no doubt. There's no disconnection with what my heart wants and what my brain knows to do, to take an action. It's all connected. It's all coherent. And I've said that word. I've said that word so many times. The coherency, that coherency in the body, that allows us to be healthy, that allows us to think clearly, that allows us to follow our hearts. It's all about clearing the playing field, getting all the debris out of it, all the junk, and then being able to truly play the game with a clean palette. When you want to paint, you can't paint over someone else's painting. It's confusing. There's no clarity. You just put paint on top of paint, and it doesn't make any sense. But when the canvas is clear, you can paint from your heart, and whatever comes out of you is what's meant to be there. But it's clear, and it's represented by itself, because there's no other static. There's no other disruption to it. There's nothing underlying it that muddies it. So just like when you look down in the water, when the mud the sediment is settled, you can see through to the bottom. But when you put your hands in there and rustle up the bottom, it rises up and it clouds the water, and you can no longer see the bottom. It's the same thing. This clarity allows you to see to the bottom, and you can see to the top, and you understand without doubt, and that is the key, without doubt what is good for you. So I know without a doubt now what is good for me. And because I know that, this is so interesting how this translates. I don't feel any need. You know, uh, and of course, the one thing that people will ask, and I get asked this from certain people in my life, is, well, don't you want a man in your life? And I'm like, well, sure, but there's a big difference between need and want. And there's actually still a big difference between want and desire. I desire a partnership, a man in my life who resonates with me. And without that resonation, I just don't have an interest. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't have a need for a partner, because need requires us to undermine ourselves. Need requires us to undermine our integrity towards ourselves, because need is its own animal. It's driven by the ego, which has its own agenda. So need, it will cause me to do things that are out of this new character. The beautiful part about this new character is that need cannot exist, just like fear can no longer exist. I don't fear anything anymore. And I mentioned this briefly in the last podcast episode. Fear has fallen away. It just isn't a driver in my life anymore. And that's one of the biggest things that I can recognize as a change, that my human brain can say, yeah, that's different. And need is another thing. I don't need anything. I don't have everything that I desire, but this incredible contentment that is settled in it's almost like, God, this is going to be weird to articulate. It's almost like this cloud came down from the sky and it covered everything in my life. It covered it all with this white fluffy substance. So when I look around my life, all I see is this comfort, this ethereal beauty all around me. I can't see what's underneath. So this is a good muddy. This is like different. This is the opposite of what I was saying before. Because all I can see is this white cloud, I don't see need anywhere. I don't see where my old heart and mind used to reside, in the landscape, with all the pitfalls, all the holes, and all the places that needed filling, and all the repair and healing that needed to be done, and that uneven, even treacherous landscape that used to be around me all the time. It is not there anymore. It has been replaced with this just fantastic trust that a resonating universe supports me. And I put that as a line in the last article that I wrote, Resonation, which I would hope that somebody would read. And if you want to give me feedback, I would love it. But it's such an interesting thing how this works. That fear and need are no longer supported in this higher frequency of energy. And if you think about, Arnold Schwarzenegger's arm, he's the three-dimensional energy. He can hold a barbell that's, 50 pounds in one hand. But this lighter energy is the arm of a baby, and it can't hold that barbell. And that barbell is all of our pain, and all of our anxiety, and all of our discontent, and all of our need, and all of our fear. So that baby hand, which is new and pure and ethereal, because babies are certainly that, doesn't have the capacity to hold that. And that's what this new energy is. It does not have the capacity to hold on to the three-dimensional weight that I carried for so long. So because I'm no longer in that energy, and I've ascended above it, I've risen above it, like a vapor out of water, like smoke out of fire. It is just a different atmosphere. So that fear is gone. That need is gone. So when I think about a man, where I used to think, oh, I hope I find somebody who's nice, and I hope I find somebody who loves me and who makes me feel good and makes me happy. And now I realize how ignorant that wanting those things is, because all of those things I feel within myself now. So I'm not looking externally for that anymore. I'm not looking externally for anything anymore. I understand that as a human being, having gone inside myself and walked the dark path with, faced my demons, slayed my dragons, however you want to put it, went through my dark soul, dark night of the soul, which is a way it's put. I, those are all weapons and shields that we carry. And once we get into this dark night of the soul, we are forced by way of uh, what we're faced with to drop all of that, because they're all hindrances to us becoming who we are meant to be, becoming our true selves, which is naked, emotionally, spiritually naked. You can't carry all that junk in. It's just like somebody who moves, and they want to take everything with them. So the house that they get is bigger than the one they're leaving because they need room for their stuff. Think of that emotionally, how much room that takes up when we carry our debris with us everywhere. If I need a bigger house to house my stuff, I have too much stuff. Every time I move, I want to downsize more and more and more. And if I end up on a mountaintop in a lean-to, that's where I'm meant to go, because the truth is the stuff that we covet, the stuff that we keep, the stuff that we hoard is just a representation of us trying to hoard something of value outside of ourselves. And when you get to that place of contentment, of understanding that nothing means anything unless it resonates with you. And honestly, resonation in this ascended energy is so pure. It's almost, God, forgive me for saying this, humanity, but it's almost like my humanity is moot. And I don't mean that 100%, because it's not true. I embrace my humanity. I almost don't want to learn too much spiritually, because I don't want to lean too far into my spirituality and discount my humanity. And I don't think there's any real way to do that, but I think my awareness of that is all I need. I don't want to be 100% spiritual or 100% materialistic. I want to be in the middle of that, or the Vesika, which is the space between spirituality and pure humanity, or pure materialism, or pure, nothing beyond the human life. This is represented by the three crosses of Christ. The left is spirituality with that wants to escape humanity. The right is humanity that doesn't believe in spirituality, and the middle is a mixture of the two, the Vesika. And I want to live in the Vesika. I want to live between the two as a perfect representation, as Christ was, of the two, where I'm here to live a human life. So I must embrace that in order to fully live it. And I'm also here as an ethereal being. And now that I've gone through this process of meeting her and becoming her, I merge the two together, and I live this life as an awakened human. And that means more to me than any extreme left or right, because I'm on this earth living this life for a reason. My soul came here for a reason, not to escape humanity, because my life is painful and I want something outside of myself to covet. I want to live a human life as a spiritually aware being, because then my life is enhanced. Then my life is healed. And I no longer am looking outside of myself for that profit, or that process, or that cult, or that idea that might save me from myself. So this contentment, which is the best word I can use, it replaces any other word that I used to reach for. Happiness, it doesn't exist. Happiness is contentment. Now, there are things that make me happy, like when when I buy something cute that I didn't think I'd find, that makes me happy in the moment. But happiness is fleeting. And it's based on things always being special. So I can always be happy, quote unquote. And that's wonderful, and I love those moments, don't get me wrong, but it's not what I feel all the time as this high vibrating reality is contentment. Contentment to live this life no matter what happens, whether things go well or they don't. It doesn't matter. I understand that this body is finite, that I'm here for a temporary amount of time, so death does not scare me. Death comes when death is ready. And I know when I die, that is my soul saying, you're done. We don't have to be here anymore. Let's go back to our home place where we're free of this body. Could you imagine coming from being an ethereal being with no form into this human body? It would be like putting on a wetsuit made of armor. I mean, can you imagine what stress we go through as babies when we come into this body and now we have to adjust to this growing and this pain and this confinement of our energy? I mean, God, it would be ridiculously uh restrictive. So, when I leave this body, it's going to be yay, let's go back to our formlessness so I can float throughout the universe as a consciousness, connected to all consciousness where I belong. So no, I don't fear death at all. I have my will done and put away. So my wishes will be granted once I go. I don't know if it's going to be today or a month or I'll be 120. I have no idea. It doesn't matter. And I love the Native American mantra that today is as good a day as any to die. Because when you have this understanding or this perspective, this contentment with life, you understand that nothing needs to be any certain way. It just doesn't. So when I think about being with a man, I desire that. And oh my God, my heart desires that. When I watch a romantic movie these days, my heart just like comes out of my chest and sings a cappella. And I was talking to my daughter about how funny it is. It's like my brain is like, oh, this is a nice movie, but my heart is just soaring, which tells me what my soul has told me all along, that I'm here to find true love and that it will come one day. And my heart is looking for that resonation. It is singing in the harmony of my soulmate. And when my soulmate gets close enough to connect with that resonation, he will come into my life. But the beauty of it is I don't have any need for him. I don't even want him. And this is interesting. Again, I'm like, well, want's not bad. No, nothing is bad or good. But want is another form of lack, in my opinion. And with me, I'm not going to put that on anyone else. This is just how finite this deconstruction of my old self has become. When I think about, do I feel in need of something? I say to myself, well, what do you need? Do you need companionship? Well, why? What are you missing? Do I not have somebody put the spiders outside or to clean out the sump pump or to mow the lawn? I mean, okay, but that's a handyman. That's not, even when I was in the depths of my grief from losing my ex-husband, which again turned out not to be grief of loss of him, it was grief of the loss of myself for so long. I would think about it when I was lonely, quote unquote, for him back in the early days. I would say, well, what do you miss about him? And I would have to think about it and say, there's nothing. There really isn't anything. And if we're honest with ourselves and we accept accountability for our own happiness or contentment, it's easy to see that. It's so interesting. So interesting how this translates and how, I think, I don't know what I thought I would experience as as an ascended person. And when I say ascended, I don't mean ascended master. I don't know what level I am or if there's more. I don't know any of that. But all I'm saying is I've risen above my old self. I'm in a new version, a new iteration of myself. Just like the person who was with my ex-husband for 25 years was a different iteration of the person that I was before I ascended to where I am. So I think this ascension just continues, and we become these different versions of ourselves. And that's evolution. That's how we evolve. And if we get to do it in a lifetime in a human body, that's exciting because I get to use this voice to speak about it. I can use my medium of writing to write about it, and I can leave a legacy in this human world for others. Whereas an ethereal being, I'm sure we communicate telepathically, but there's no manifestation of or creative. I can't create anything tangible, I guess is a way to put it. So yes, I have this voice that I get to speak and I get to talk about. It's so exciting. But that's what this is. This ascension has just grown, or this contentment in my body, and it goes all the way to my core, where nothing hurries me really, nothing stresses me out really, nothing causes me anxiety or pressure really. And I'm sure a lot of that is attributed to the fact that my life has just been so completely cleared of anything that didn't serve me, that I have this clear, open palette. So it's easy to feel what I'm actually feeling, and it's not encumbered with everything that I'm holding. And that's the reason why, in the three-dimensional energy, while we carry all this weight around, we can never think clearly. We can't trust ourselves because we are so burdened with this weight. Like all of our energy is used to carry around our junk, and we don't have any for our intuition and to follow our heart. It just, these are too finite of things. So, just like people who are psychic, they sense, energy outside of themselves. So they have to be clear to do that. I can't enjoy something light because everything is so heavy within me. The lightness is not detectable. So I wish there was a better way to put that. And if I think of something, I will. But it's like you can't smell perfume if your nose is pinched closed. So another bad example, but I think you're getting the idea. It's just an openness that allows you to really understand how you're actually feeling, and not how you're conditioned to feel from your experiences or your perceptions or your beliefs. You get to play this game as a master because you are clear of all of the shit. So no, and the same about money. I have some money put away, but not enough for the rest of my life. So do I worry about that? And this, I said before, was the biggest obstacle for me, and why I felt emancipated from my own self, my old self, when I spoke in the last episode. Once that hurdle was cleared, and it fell away slowly, and I want to really pay attention to the process because I want to report on it. Fear is something that slowly went away. It almost is like and I guess everything's energy, so it's an impression. It was an impression that was so deeply embedded into my energy that it took a while for it to dissipate out and really just disappear. So I imagine, washing something with a stain on it. If you're looking under the water in the washing machine and you can see the stain start to lift out of the fabric, that's what it feels like, the fear leaving my body. And I pulled it out of the wash 50 times and threw it in the dryer with a faint stain still on it, just thinking that stain's going to stay forever. You know how when you do that with whatever doesn't come out completely, you get it out of the dryer and you're like, ah, crap, I can still see it. It's finally gone. I no longer can feel it. It is no longer a resonant energy in my body. It does not resonate with my current energy. So therefore it dissipated and was ejected. This is so fascinating. So those staples of fear and of need are just gone. So now when I think about what I really want, it's difficult to wish for anything because I have everything I could possibly want. So it's interesting. I've been encouraged by my spirit team to actually wish for the things I desire, because I'm helping them come into manifestation by doing that. So I want to sit around and just say I'm grateful for everything that I have, and I am. And I must tell you that 99.999% of manifestation is just gratitude for what you already have. Otherwise, it's need or it's want, which resonates lower, and isn't heard. It isn't heard on the plane of manifestation. It's heard on the lower planes of manifestation. So you manifest more need and more want in your life. But for these other things, for desire, it's almost like it's the daydreaming. It's the sitting in perfect contentment and daydreaming about what's possible. That's the difference between want and desire, at least for me. So like my heart singing out for its resonant match is an example of that. I'm not thinking that. My heart is literally calling on its own. And I said this to my daughter. It's like I look down, I'm like, what are you doing, girl? To my heart. I'm like, what's going on? Because it literally hums. And I've had so many examples of my soulmate reaching out to me in a romantic gesture. And I'm going to save something for my book, otherwise nobody's going to want to read it. So those examples will be in there. I won't speak of them here. They're so beautiful. And honestly, I meant to keep them just intimate for myself, because that's how intimate they were, these romantic gestures from the 5D into my heart. But I did document them in my book. They are going to be in my book. And I have spoken to some degree about them, but just please understand, in this resonation, in this higher energy, ethereal beings can reach you energetically. So my higher self, who speaks to me clearly now, there's no longer a barrier between us. So when I speak, I channel her. So the wisdom doesn't come from my brain. It comes from my higher self, or the other members of my soul team, and the higher self of my future soulmate, who speaks to me in ways that are fascinating and touches my heart in ways that is exquisite. I've never experienced anything in my life like it. So I'm going to leave that there, but I want you to understand what this contentment contains and what it doesn't contain. Because need and want resonate at a lower frequency, because that means we're lacking something. So when we project lack, we receive lack. It's just so, in the article I wrote, Resonation, there's a section about this, how manifestation works. It reads your current energy. So if my current energy is need and want, and I'm always unhappy because I don't have what I want, that's what gets sent out into the universe, and that is reflected in my life with lessons to help me understand that none of that is true. And that if I keep looking outside of myself, I'm going to keep manifesting these opportunities to learn, which are wonderful, unless we don't learn. And then they're horrible, because we're constantly bombarded with these tests of our trust of the universe, of ourselves. And I went through many of these tests myself, trust me. Even up until very recently, when I was finally told that you've graduated, G, you don't have to do this anymore. There's no more tests. We're just preparing you and your soulmate and what you're meant to do next. So just sit tight. Do what your heart calls you to do. Follow your intuition and nothing else. So that's what I'm doing. And that's why it took me over a month, I think maybe 2 months, I don't know, to do another podcast, because I'm like, I'm not feeling inspired. And I don't have to produce a freaking thing. It is amazing. So, we in this energy, when I sit at my back window and look outside at the beautiful earth and the gorgeous trees and the creatures and even the insects, every living thing, and I'm learning so much that everything on this earth that is earthly is a consciousness, is a living thing. The blades of grass, the grains of sand, the rocks, the trees, everything is a consciousness. The animals are an advanced consciousness, because they choose to come in this form to be companions to us, to help us learn about love and compassion, about empathy. And, they don't mind if we eat them. That's fine. But when we can find our way to to appreciate them the way we appreciate life. And let me backpedal a little bit. If we can learn to love ourselves, and in that emanation, we learn to love everything else, include all that. We're looking at animals as animals, but they are advanced beings who are here as a consciousness to help us grow as humans. And if we treat them like animals, quote unquote, we don't get that learning. I mean, I'm learning this from a book that I'm reading right now called Earth from the Pleiadians by Barbara Marciniak, which I would highly recommend to anybody interested in learning more about our humanity and this earth and going beyond our purpose here and the earth's purpose and the purpose of animals and plants and everything. I'm learning to understand that there's a language that is being spoken outside of my door. And if I go and immerse myself in nature and I ask for nature to imbue me, this is another form of being another form of information, of gifts, of knowledge that our brethren outside the door are here to give us when we are aware enough, resonant enough to receive it. So this is a whole track that I'm not right now, learning about the resonation of nature with my body. Once that's all coherent, I get the benefits of this whole other bounty of information that goes into my body and becomes part of my being and helps me to become an instrument of light, which is what we're all meant to become. So there's so much more to this ascension than just feeling better, than just accepting ourselves, than just the humanity of it. But again, I want to stay in the vesica of this life. I want to stay as a spiritually balanced human. And I don't know if that's 50-50 or 60-40 human, spiritual. I don't know what the ratio is, but all I can tell you is I feel this coherency, this synergy, this in syncness with myself and this earth and this universe. And it is a resonation. And that's the only word I can come back to. So contentment is the word I would use to describe my heart and my mind and my ego, who I have reconciled with. Because the ego is a barrier to all of this. And that's not an accident, because we have to overcome the ego as humans in order to find our ethereal selves. And then we get to explore this whole other world. So I'm not discounting my ego. My ego played a very important role in my life, of my soul. That's why I'm in this human form. The ego is a very important tool in that. When we only identify with our ego, we are deep in the three-dimensional energy, and we're unable to escape it until we reconcile with our ego. And that's why it's so important for us to take accountability and to release the hold the ego has on our beings, because our ego will not allow us, unless we temper it, it won't allow us to see beyond it. So I described this in one of my comments on Conscious Commons when I was engaging in a conversation, is that my ego was the sentry at the doorway to my ethereal self. It would not let me pass until I can see beyond her. That's why we're in this human form, to use this exercise, this matrix, this virtual reality playground, learning field, to overcome and to evolve or ascend. So my ego is now, she helps me put myself out there. She helps me get my piece of the pie. She helps me be an effective human in a world of other humans, where I have to deal with other people and other things and circumstances and situations. But she is no longer a barrier to my ethereal body, the real me. So now I can be a confident individual, a sentient woman in my energy with agency and boundaries and taking up my own space here without being taken advantage of and without taking too much. And that's why my empathy and compassion is so big, because people like me, and there are many more like me, they don't take more than their share because they understand that we all need and we all share the pie. So, as an unevolved empath or empathetic, I get run over pretty frequently. So that doesn't happen anymore. I have a very clear understanding of who I am, and I'm comfortable in my own skin, even though this skin is alien to my true self. I've adapted, I've adjusted, I've now become coherent with it. So all of my functions are active. All of my channels are open. All of my chakras are spinning. All my connection to the universe and to the earth is clear. I'm a conduit between the two. I'm just a channel, and I'm a way to express my soul into this world. So that is the contentment that I have fallen into, that I've settled into in this energy. And another thing that I want to talk about is effortlessness. And this is something that was told to me again over and over in the readings over the 2 years that about a year and a half that I listened to them. And it's been 7 months now since I've I think it's 7 months since the end of January. It's the beginning of August. It's 7 months since I've looked at a reading or done even my own oracle cards, because I wanted to disconnect completely from that support so I could learn to walk as this ethereal human by myself, trusting the universe without needing the constant validation. And I told the universe at that time, and I think I mentioned this before, I think I'm done with the readings. I think I'm good. I think I got it. I said, I don't need it anymore. I appreciate all that you did to get me here. I think I got it from here. And I think I mentioned that the next time I went to do a reading out of just curiosity, it was completely didn't resonate at all. And I knew that the channel was shut off because I said I was ready for it to be shut off. And not soon after, I watched a YouTube video about something unrelated that just happened to contain the phrase that don't worry if the messages have stopped, that just means that you have graduated. You don't need them anymore. So it was a final validation that you're good, girl, go do this. We're here, but you don't need to hear from us every day. But one thing they did tell me during that time period was that my life would become effortless. And of course, I think, well, oh my God, how could that possibly look in the human world where there's so much that can go wrong? There's so much that can throw a monkey wrench into things. There's so much that could change or stop, or somebody could stop caring about you, or relationships and jobs and just so many things. How could it be effortless? And it's funny how when you just trust, which is something that it took me a while and a lot of support to learn to do. But again, as I was learning and being given all these messages, I was rising slowly out of that 3D energy. And when I finally escaped or rose above, or rose above that energy, I had learned these lessons kind of at the same time. So as I was rising, I was dropping all this weight already. So it made my elevation quicker. And I think that was the point of the whole thing, because my soul came here to do something specific. And now that I'm in this space where I'm becoming aware, which is with the end of my last relationship of 25 years with my ex-husband. Once I got out of that and literally pulled out by my ear, they were like, come on, we got to get you on track. It's time. So here I am at 60 years old, where by rights, I could still be mourning this relationship 2 years later. But 7 months after that energetic break, I was in a completely different space. And now, 2 full years later, I can't even, it doesn't resonate. And that's the best way I can put it. It's a memory. It's something that I can recall, but it doesn't have a driving force in my body. It doesn't cause a reaction. And I was driving down the street the other day, on my way somewhere, and I think I saw my ex-husband on his motorcycle. As I passed, I'm pretty sure it was him. And as I drove by, I'm like, oh, I wonder if that was him. And I kept driving, and I realized later that evening, I'm like, I didn't even think about it again. It wasn't like, oh my God, there he is, or oh, there's that asshole, or it was just nothing. It was just this amazing, oh, I think that was him. And okay, just like any other person. And it was just funny how when I'm observant of these new characteristics of my energy, it is just fascinating how different I am and how content I am and how I don't need for him to be any certain way. God, we know that at this point. I wrote him a note towards the end of our business relationship recently. I said, I wish you a happy life. And I want you to know I appreciated the time I spent with you. Maybe not for the reason you'd think, but I did. You gave me, I mean, he gave me, he kicked open the door to this place for me. And I will always give him credit for that, because everyone in our life that causes us grief, pain, anger, is doing that for a reason. And the ones who make these big impacts, you have to remember, and I watched a young lady on Instagram talk about this in her post, that these people in our lives that cause this stress that cracks and breaks us agreed to do that as a favor to us so they can help us evolve. So these are soulmates, and we probably have, she says, 50 or more at a time in our lives. I don't know that number in mind, but that are around us, pushing us, molding us, pushing us into situations or circumstances that force us to reconcile with ourselves in one way or another, and then eventually wholly, completely, if we're meant to. So I'm told that my life is going to be effortless, and I'm like, okay, what is that going to look like? I'm so curious. And I think about money, because this again was the biggest hurdle for me as a single 60-year-old woman with no real marketable job skills besides being self-employed. I did work for a large corporation for 13 years, and I was a manager. So I have that skill set there, but nothing I want to do as a profession besides talk on this microphone and write my articles and write my book. So, I don't really have anything that I know I would want to go out and do. So I'm like, okay, of course, in the very beginning, when I left my business more than a year ago, I'm like, well, someday is going to come. I'm going to have to figure this out. It's just not today. And then time would just go by, and I would think, okay, it's time for me to find a job. And I just didn't need to. I had what I had what I needed, and I knew enough to not want more. And I just knew enough to trust. It was beaten into my head by my soul team. Just trust and don't worry about it. Take a chill pill, girl. So I would just remember that, and I would keep going, and then months would go by and more months would go by, and I'm still good. And I'm like, I still have everything I need. I don't really know how I do, but I do. And here we are, a year and 2 months later, and I'm still good. I don't have a source of income from my business anymore, but I'm still good. And I'm in an energy now where I don't even think about it anymore. I don't even think about it, because I know one thing for sure. If I follow my heart and my intuition, I'll be led where I need to go. If that's a job in the future, then I will be intuitively inclined to do that. You see what I'm saying? So the worry serves no purpose. The concern is just a barrier to this vibrancy, or this resonation with the universe at this level where I know that I'm supported. So if I know I'm supported, but I doubt it every day, I'm lowering that energy and I'm out of that realm again. I'm forcing myself out. It's like throwing yourself out of a car that's driving down the highway. If I no longer resonate with that interior, I'm ejected out of it and I'm no longer get a ride. So doubt is fruitless. And honestly, I'm not able to do it anymore anyway. I might have a moment or two, and then it just kind of disappears. Almost like when I was deep in that 3D energy and I had a moment of two of a brilliant idea, or of a vision of my life outside of the pain I was in. It was so fleeting, though I could never grasp it. That's what doubt is now. So what the fuck business do I have to doubt anything when I've been shown over and over and over and over that I'm supported? This is so brilliant. It's so delicious. I can't even get enough of it. When I sit and think about it, my heart just soars. I don't have to worry about it. If I need to do something, my intuition will tell me. That's it. There's nothing else. So effortless in that sense, for sure. I no longer have to think about it. Not concerned about it. I don't worry about anything. It is effortless. And my life goes on the way it did in my home, with my vehicle, with my outings. I don't overspend. I've always been very good with my money. So I'm helping the universe by being conservative. I've always been conservative. So I'm not doing much differently than I did before. But it's effortless. I'm not thinking, I'm not concerned. It just keeps going. Another thing is that I didn't realize is that effortlessness is not just what my life is, it is how I respond to my life. So if something goes wrong, I don't freak out. And this is something that I've had experience with just recently because I live in a home where I have a split level house and I have a sump pump. And if anybody has a sump pump, you know that if a sump pump goes bad or fails, that you can get water in your house and it can be a whole thing. And when my ex-husband finally moved out, I was terrified of that thing because I wanted to make sure that I could deal with it if something went wrong. And it's so funny. I went through this whole thing back in the beginning, way in the beginning, about getting a plumber out here and give me a system that's reliable. I don't care. Give me 50 backups. If that goes, I want it to be supported. And I was so fearful of that happening. And I didn't end up doing any of that because the expense was outrageous. I just replaced the sump pump with a new one. And over time, I just got comfortable with the fact that the sump pump would work and I wouldn't have to worry about it. And I just finally, after months, was able to let it go. So you can imagine when the power goes out, the sump pump stops working, and now I'm got to worry about water. I'm like, oh crap, and I'm bugging my first ex-husband, who I love dearly, this beautiful man, the father of my daughter. He's a dear friend of mine, and I would call him and say, the first time the power went out when I was first alone back a couple years ago, he rushed over with a generator and helped me hook it up. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. And the generator, I think it made the pump go once during the whole 6 hours. The power was out and it never ever rose to a dangerous level. But he was so great and he helped me with that. But it made me realize that I don't need to worry. It's okay. So just recently, the power went out, first time in a very long time. And I come home, and just as I'm texting my daughter that, be careful, severe weather's coming, the power goes out. And I'm like, okay. So my first thought normally would have been in my old energy, well, I got to worry about the sump pump. Let me call my ex-husband. But I just took a deep breath and I realized that I wasn't stressed at all. And I thought, okay, I have dinner in the refrigerator. I don't want to open the refrigerator or the freezer until the power comes back on. Otherwise, the food goes bad. I knew all this because I'd researched it before. So I just went and sat in my chair and I looked out the back window and watched the rain and listened to the thunder and the lightning, which is so beautiful. And 2 hours later, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, well, I'm going to wait another hour. If the power doesn't come back on, I'm going to pull dinner out and I'm going to eat it cold. That way it won't go to waste. Because after 4 hours, I'm going to have to throw everything away in the fridge anyway. The freezer's good for 24 or 48 hours. So I'm good with that. And luckily, there's not much in my refrigerator ever. So it's no big deal. So after about 2 hours, the power came back on. And I'm sitting there going, okay, cool. I don't have to throw away anything in the fridge. I can eat at dinner time. All's good. Everything's totally cool. And I'm just was so proud of myself. But it really wasn't a pride because I didn't have to make an effort to feel calm. I was just very calm. So, that's effortless. And then there's another thing. There's another element to this that I didn't realize was going to happen, but it certainly has happened. And it's more along the lines of the universe supporting me. It's not just my reaction to my life being effortless. So if something goes wrong, one example of that is I have this appliance in my bedroom called an Ooler, Ooler, that is a water-cooled system for my bed. So it's a mattress topper that water runs through, and I can change the temperature from very low to very high, depending on if I'm going to be warm or cold. I get very warm when I sleep. So this water-cooled air, mattress topper, I turn it to 63 degrees when I sleep because I'm very warm at night and I can't sleep when I'm warm. So I had two of these at one time because when my ex-husband was here, he had one, I had one. Anyway, over the years, the last few years, I've had trouble with the one. It got fixed. It got fixed 3 times or 2 times, and then they finally replaced it. So this is over a 2-year period. So this piece of equipment has some problems. So I'm like, oh God, I hope this continues to work. Well, the warranty's run out. I sent it during the warranty period, the end of last season. I sent it back to the company because it had malfunctioned. It wasn't cooling. They sent it back in November, where I had already stripped the bed of the mattress cover because I don't no longer need it in the winter. I put it away and just hoped that it would work this summer. So I pulled them both out this summer because what I do is I set them both up and I sleep on both sides of the bed, alternating because I use both of them. That way the bed wears evenly. If you're single, you know what I'm talking about. So I'm using them both, and almost within the first few weeks, the older one that had never had a problem malfunctioned. It stopped working. It poured water all over my floor. I'm like, oh crap, I got water. I cleaned it all up, put the unit aside, and I just started sleeping on the other side with the one that had been repaired. But what had happened is when I set up both of them, only the old one was working. The other one would not cool. It was showing that it was cool, but it wasn't working. So I just left that one alone and I used the other one. It was just within the first couple of weeks that I had them out. So when this older one broke down, I'm like, I have to use the newer one. So I have to figure out how to make it work. So I tried it again. I set the temperature at the cool. It ran. I did all of the diagnostics. Everything should have worked. I lie on the bed and it was not cool and it wasn't working. So I turned it off, went about my business. I went back again later and I said, let me reverse psychology this thing. Let me turn it way warm and see if it warms up. So I did that and it did warm up, turned it back to cool, and it still wasn't cooling. And I'm like, oh boy, well, I guess they're both broken. I'm going to have to turn the air down in the house because I sleep upstairs. It's too warm. I need to turn the air down to, I don't know, 68 something so I can sleep. I just have to deal with a higher electric bill, whatever. So I went about my business, and the next day I'm sitting downstairs and I just said, you know what, let me try one more time. And I went upstairs in my bedroom and I just pushed the button on it. I set it at 63 degrees. I went downstairs and sat and I waited about 45 minutes. And I went upstairs and laid on the bed and it was cool. And I thought to myself, holy shit, it's working. After 4 tries. And somehow I almost put it away, but I just said, try one more time. And it's working. So now I'm enjoying one side of my bed with this incredible machine that keeps my body cool at night, where I can keep the air conditioning at between 70 and 73 and still sleep. Therefore, my electric bill is reasonable. So that's one example. The second thing that happened was my remote to my Roku player started to go bonkers, and it was like I would push the button to select something and it would just keep jumping to the next few things, and I would have to really try to play with it to get it to land on the content I wanted to watch, and it was just an annoyance. And I Googled how to fix it, and it said, well, you could probably try these things. I tried everything, nothing worked. The last thing was disconnect it from the internet and see if that does it. And I'm like, I don't even know how to do that. So I just kind of got used to using it the way it was working. And I'm like, it's no big deal. I'll get a new one, whatever. So a few days later, the internet went out. And I don't even know why it went out. I was doing something and my alarm system says that it's on cellular backup. So that's how I know the power went out. And I'm like, what the heck? There's nothing, no storm. There's nothing going on. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. And I don't know exactly when it went back on, but it was pretty quickly it went back on because my service was restored. And I went to watch TV that evening, and I get the remote out and turn on the TV, and I'm looking for content, and I'm realizing after a few minutes that the remote is fixed. I'm like, what the hell? And then I realized the internet went out, which disconnected it from my network. And now that it's connected back, it's working fine. That's example number 2. Example number 3 was when the power went out and everything, my refrigerator was without power, and I was talking about the food in it and all that stuff. About a week or about 3 weeks before, when I was doing my exercises, I noticed my refrigerator was vibrating really loudly. And it's about 10 years old, and I know these newer refrigerators don't last like the old ones used to. So I'm thinking to myself, "Oh boy, what's going on with the refrigerator?" And I'm like, and I talk to my appliances. I always say, "Thank you for these conveniences. Thank you for making my life convenient. I'll do my best to take care of you. Let me know what you need." I try to be there for everything and everyone, and in my home, because I'm so grateful for my home. And I said to the refrigerator, I said, "Okay, if you continue to make the noise, I'll figure something out. I'll call a serviceman." I go, "But I'm going to leave you alone for a little while. If it's something you're working through, I'll let you do it. Otherwise, I'll get you some help." So I waited through it. That day, it made a lot of noise. The next morning, it made a lot of noise. And then I noticed during the day that it wasn't making noise anymore. And I'm like, okay, it figured itself out. About 2 weeks later, the same thing happened. It started making the noise. It vibrated. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, something is obviously going wrong. So I'm Googling how do I fix a vibrating Samsung refrigerator? And I'm getting all these different things. And I'm like, none of this makes any sense. So I ended up calling Samsung, who are wonderful, by the way. And I had this young man who was walking me through doing a forced defrost, which he thought it might be the fan having ice on it. And I'm like, okay, there's no ice in my fridge or freezer, but okay, I'll do that. So I went through that whole process. It didn't help at all. I woke up the next morning, it was as loud as ever. And it's just going and going and going and going and going. And I said to myself, okay, I'm going to give it a little bit longer. If it continues, obviously something's going wrong. I'll get a serviceman out here. I think I waited till the next day, and that next day was the day the power went out. And I'm sitting there in my chair, worrying about the food in thinking about the food in my fridge and waiting patiently. And the power comes back on and everything goes back on. And I didn't notice till that evening that the vibration was gone. And that was mm, 2 weeks ago. And it has not happened again. Now, I don't know that the universe fixed my refrigerator for sure, but I do know that disconnecting it from the power was one of the things that was suggested in the Google search that might help it. But I wasn't going to try to pull my huge refrigerator out and unplug it. So I just figured, that's not going to happen. But the power went out, refrigerator's fixed. Internet went out, remote's fixed. I tried the Uller one last time, and it's fixed. So I do believe, and I do thank the universe and my soul team. I always say, thanks for your help, because I know that my life is meant to be effortless. And that doesn't just mean the way I perceive it. It's everything. And it's because I am an important, we are important. And when we get into this awakened state, we become resonant with the souls outside of our perception who are here to help us with whatever's next. So when they tell me I'm going to always have the abundance that I need, I trust them. When they tell me my life is effortless, all I have to do is trust them. And then guess what? It is. And this has so much to do with the manifestation process as it is too, is if we trust that we deserve the best life possible and we resonate that. And again, it has to be something that's consistent and repetitive. It can't just be a one and done. We have to become this resonation. Please look at this article I wrote if you're interested at all in the scientist or the scientific or technical explanation of this, which I'm not a scientist or technical person, but the process of it, the day-to-day stuff is highlighted in there. It's something that we can do for ourselves as co-creators with the universe. If we put ourselves in that resonation by exuding love, and love is the vehicle. And I will say this over and over and over again. Love is what evolves us. Love is what escalates us out of this three-dimensional energy and into whatever ethereal energies we rise to. The reason that we awaken in the earth plane, especially those who are awakening en masse now, are here to help the world, the earth evolve. How are we doing that? This was something I learned in the book that I'm reading by the Pleiadians, who channeled this information to Barbara Marciniak and her group, who wrote a book about it called Earth. Is we are here to help the earth evolve, and we do that through love. So when we love ourselves, which is the first step, so when we awaken out of our darkness, we become aware of our own self and how we've kind of created the life that we're in. And then once we do that, we start down this road where we're walking, we're walking and walking. We don't realize as we're walking, we're rising as well. This is what it's all about. And I've had all this support from my soul team here and in the ethereal world, getting me down this road, helping me understand and getting to this place where I'm meant to go emotionally, energetically, not physically, not yet anyway. Because we are meant to, those who are awakening en masse, who are going through their dark night of the soul and rising above it and realizing, becoming aware of themselves and who they are, and who are healing themselves and their worlds, their lives, and their relationships, and they're becoming these aware, elevated beings. And it's happening en masse, and it has been for 25 years, but certainly now, is that love that emanates, that we're creating from loving ourselves and then loving others because we see ourselves in them, and loving the earth because I'm learning every day that the earth is a living creature as well. That when I learn to love her, I am elevating her. So there's so many humans on this earth. Just imagine the resonation to the universe, the resonation, if it's love. And love resonates at a specific frequency. And if we're all resonating at that love frequency, we are pulling the earth up with us. It is like the water in the washing machine with the soap pulling that stain out of the fabric. We are doing that. We're pulling that low energy out of the earth, and we're helping her to evolve. And of course, all of humanity, because the resonation is so strong, it affects everyone and everything. And we all tune ourselves together. We become this huge tuning fork in the universe. And believe it or not, and I do believe it, that Earth is a central location for all life in the universe. That Earth is observed as a very important place because of the way we love, because of the way this human body can love with this heart center. And when we evolve out of this old Piscean and Piscean energy and into the the Aquarian energy, which is the era we're in now, where love and compassion and unity and community is valued over materialism and domination and competitiveness, which is the old era of the Pisces era. The feminine is now rising and emerging as the prominent energy in the world, and that is being felt everywhere. And all of the turmoil in the world is an example of that. It's a characteristic of that. It is a byproduct, because as we become more enlightened, we become more our demons are agitated by the world and how people are mistreated. So Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. No, I'm sorry, Black Lives Matter, gay rights, human rights, civil rights, women's rights, all of these eras throughout time are projecting us towards this time where we are becoming the feminine. And it doesn't mean that we're not masculine anymore. It just means that masculine is detoxified, because the masculine energy has become toxic. I don't remember exactly how I put it in my article Resonation, but strength wants to dominate. Competitiveness wants to cheat and steal. That when it becomes toxic. So these qualities of the old masculine era are falling away because we are rising up and we are wanting to take care of the mass. And I've used this example before. If you look at the human body, if we look at the head as being the 2% of the wealthiest people in the world, who covet all the resources and all the wealth, and maybe don't value the rest of the body, which is the arms and the legs and the torso, the heart, and all of the rest of the body, the head cannot live without the body. So if you are one of those 2% and you look at the rest of the humanity uh, as siphoning your wealth as an unnecessary evil in your world, you are just sorely mistaken. Without the body, the head cannot survive. And we really must look at humanity that way. If we're all not thriving, none of us are really thriving. And this is how we're choking out the resources of the earth, and we're choking out all the things that are possible for all of us. If instead of dominance and um, the desire to hoard resources, if instead we used technology to make sure everybody can eat, and that we're not raping the earth for resources, and that we're using technology that is available to us, that is not being used for to the greater good of humanity, if we started to apply it towards those means, towards those ends, we could all thrive. And look at again that resonation of love. If we're all thriving, we're all in this resonation of appreciation and of love and of community, the earth gets healed, the universe gets healed. This is how karma gets healed. And all of the souls that have come here over and over and over to heal their karma, and I'm one of them, this is happening all over the universe. All beings have karma. It's not just us. And they're looking at us as a mechanism to heal the whole universe. So that's why there's so much support and assistance, especially I know in my own personal life that I'm being supported in a way I never imagined. It's not just me emotionally getting clear. It is me being literally supported by the universe with money, with resources, I said this before, I thought I was going to lose my home and my vehicle when I got divorced. But my soul team, the universe, however you want to look at it, made sure that I got to keep them. I still don't really know how that worked out. But you see what I'm saying? If it were just up to me, if all I knew was me, I would have just been left. I've been living in my sister's spare bedroom. This is way bigger than me, because it's so important for us to awaken and to become part of this resonation of love, to heal this earth, to heal humanity, to heal the universe, which is infinite. And there are beings all over it. It's just so interesting how much more comfortable I've gotten with talking about extraterrestrials or Pleiadians or star seeds or Andromedans or the Lyrans. There's so many different star systems where there are so many civilizations that are helping us, and so many civilizations that have been on Earth before us. I mean, millions of years before us that we just don't know about because we don't have a memory, because there's so many reasons that I can't even get into now. But there's another series that I'm watching on Gaia called Ancient Civilizations that is so enlightening about our origination as a species on Earth and how many more iterations there were before us. It's so fascinating. I could do a whole series of podcasts on this, but I don't want to soapbox. I don't want to talk at you. I want to share my experiences and what they've brought to my life, and I don't want to become a lecturer. Doesn't feel like what I want to do. I want to just speak about my own experiences. I call myself, it's 2:22 on the clock. That means my spirit team is here. I call myself an experiential physicist. It's not a technical thing at all, but it's something that popped into my mind as an experimenter of humanity, being an ethereal being. So an ethereal being experiencing humanity. So that's what I am. I'm an experiential physicist. I'm reporting on my findings as an experiencer of humanity in this earthly plane. And it's so interesting because it's my mind doesn't work the way it used to. I used to think about my own life and what's going on in it and those around me, and where do I, all the obstacles and the things that I had to overcome, and how do I get where I want to go, and that was my whole life. I don't think about anything like that anymore. When I sit and think, it is about the universe. It is about ethereal beings. It is about my role as a light worker here. It is about the information that I'm being exposed to, the books and the videos and the symbols and signs right outside my door in nature, the buzzing in my ear, which is going on right now, which is another sign of the higher frequency. My whole heart is comfortable with my human life now, so much so that I'm not concerned with it at all. I go about and enjoy myself in the ways that I want. I spend time with the people I want to spend time with. I do what I want to do. I create. I rest. I have joy. It's all on. It's just. I don't want to say it's on autopilot because that makes me sound disconnected, but it's just all working, and it doesn't require my concern. Because of this resonation, the universe and I are connected in a way that's so intimate that I no longer have to think about it. It just is who I am now. It is who this human me is now. The human who used to struggle on my own, walking blindly on this earth plane, who is now fully capable of seeing not just what's in front of me, but what's all around me, and not necessarily through my eyes. This is really the biggest thing that I want to share, that we don't stop playing the game. We become masters of it. And that's not my phrase. I heard it somewhere. And of course, it resonated and it pops into my awareness at a time where it's most appropriate. That's another thing. It just works. I don't have to think about it. When I do these podcasts, I don't think about much what I'm going to say because it's a barrier to what naturally comes through me. You know, I just want it to be clear that I have a lot of support. We all do. But we don't know that support's there because we're so intent on fixing it ourselves when we have no idea what we're doing. And letting go and allowing myself to fall into myself, trusting that I'll be guided to where I'm meant to go. And knowing now, as I look back, how incredible a leap that was. I'm just so grateful. Gratitude has become the first thing I say in the last every day of my life. And of course, gratitude is another resonation, and it's just who I am now. There's nothing missing. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing broken. There's nothing needed. There's nothing to fear. That's who I am right now. And I wanted to sit in this energy for a while before I recorded because I didn't want to just say 3 weeks after the last one, oh, here's how I'm feeling. I wanted to really experience this and really understand, is this how I'm feeling or is this something temporary? I can tell you without a doubt, I have no idea what's going to happen in my life. But it honestly doesn't matter. It does not matter. I have the love of a beautiful family, and this is my soul family. My beautiful daughter, my new granddaughter, who's grabbed my heart and stuck it in her pocket, and I don't think I'll ever get it back. And that's perfectly fine with me. I have the people, the souls who are around us, loving and supporting us, who I know by name. I'm very, very close to. I speak to them every day. I have my beautiful home. I have a vehicle. I have friendships. I have everything I could possibly want. So what right would I have, even if I had the inclination to want or need a fucking thing? Excuse my F-bomb. But an F-bomb is quite satisfying at times. I recommend it in the right company, of course. So I think I'm done. I appreciate you listening if you stayed. I know these are long, but I said way in the beginning that they're going to be however long they are. And I appreciate that space. I appreciate anyone who listens. I appreciate anyone who resonates with any of this. And if you don't, and you do one day, I wish that too. But I'm just so grateful to all of you. I'm so grateful for this platform. I'm so grateful to my soul team, my earth family, all of my souls in my life. I'm so grateful. And thank you for this amazing life, for this amazing platform, for this amazing voice. And thank you again to all who are listening. I appreciate you very much.